I'm Dr. Dilim. I'm a board certified and consultant family physician. I am made in Nigeria. A short while ago, I got to hear about the trailer of the blockbuster movie Afame Funa and Nwa Boy's Story on Netflix. I heard so much about it, it came highly recommended. Of course, I rushed to go see the movie. The movie was about the Igbo apprenticeship system, also known as stakeholder capitalism. Boy, was I excited to see that movie until there was a part in the plot. It twisted and blew up in our faces. And that's where I come in. It was about paternity fraud and paternity testing. Interestingly enough, I was not a part of the movie, nor the production of the movie. However, I was on the receiving end with respect to that movie. I received a lot of calls from friends, from patients. Doctor, I want to know if I'm the true biological father of my child or children. Doctor, I want to beat my chest, hold my head up high, and walk strutting, knowing that I'm the real father, the true father, the real biological father, the real genetic father of my children. Hey. Hold on. Calm down. Wait a minute. Chill. Relax as I take you through the journey of how a man progresses from doubt to revelation. It's going to be an interesting ride, and I'd like you to join me. But before I head into that, who is your child? For me, your child is the person that you raise, not necessarily the person that you give birth to. Now, that's a topic for a different conversation beyond that of today's video. So what is paternity fraud? Paternity fraud is when a woman falsely claims or accuses a man of fathering her child. In the beginning, in the past, like I said, the concept of paternity testing is not new. And so then they started with the use of blood group types to determine paternity. However, it was not a reliable method of determining paternity. What it helped to do was to establish the potential of a man not fathering a child or a child. And it progressed from there until where we are today. What were the other options that were used for paternity testing before these times? Apart from the ABO blood group type that includes blood group A, blood group B, blood group AB, and blood group O, there were other types that were used to determine that a man was not the father of a child. And that also included what's called the rhesus grouping system, the rhesus type. This rhesus type includes the negative and the positive, which is usually an arm on the blood group. Other types also included the HLA protein, which is the human leukocyte antigen protein. These are found on the white blood cells. As at today, all of those have been overtaken with the DNA test. Hold on, we'll soon get there. So who can request for a paternity test? The physician can request for a paternity test. The courts can request for a paternity test, especially when there are legal battles, or the parents of the child could request for a paternity test. Like I said, in the past, there were different methods that were used to rule out that a man was the father of the child. With respect to the ABO blood group types, a particular example comes to mind where a baby is admitted and will be needing blood. Usually the first port of call will be the parents for donation of blood, right? Sometimes the mother is excluded and the father has to donate the blood. On running the blood test type, we find that the man could not have been the father of the child, or that the blood is so incompatible that the man could not have fathered the child. Of course, that blood transfusion may be impossible to carry out. And so, a particular example, just think about it. A man who is blood group O and a woman who is blood group O, that man cannot be the father of the child if the blood group of the child is A, or if the blood group of the child is B, or if the blood group of the child is AB. That man is definitely not the father of the child. And so that's how the AB, and O blood group type works. It serves to eliminate the fatherhood of the child. But hey, the degree of accuracy is definitely not 90%, right? So it is used to eliminate that a man is the father of the child. A similar scenario applies when it comes to the rhesus blood type. That positive or that negative, that plus sign or that negative sign that you see on your blood group. For example, A positive or A negative. The positive, the negative comes from a particular blood type called the rhesus blood group typing system, right? So we have O positive, we have O negative. And so again, a particular scenario of a man having to donate blood for the child. And let's say the child is O positive. The father is O negative. The mother is O negative. That child was not fathered by that man. See, there is no immaculate conception. It means that a child will take genetic material, genes, DNA, right, from both parents, roughly half and half from both parents, and will express it as such. This means that in the particular scenario I just painted, the rhesus scenario, that man is not the father of the child. But there are only two types. What if the other father? There are just two types. But I hope that for the AB, A and B and O blood group types are clear. And I hope that of the rhesus positive and rhesus negative is clear. Now let us head into the genotype system. What is the genotype system about? Commonly, when we talk about genotype, people remember getting married, planning to get married, etc., where a couple has to be compatible to rule out the risk of having children, especially with sickle cell disease. And so a man's genotype of AA and a woman having the genotype of AA, both of them, the man cannot be a father if the child turns out to be SS. The man cannot be the father if the child turns out to be AS, right? The man cannot be the father if the child turns out to be SC. So the genotype system too also helps to eliminate who the father of the child is not. Is that clear? And then we go down into today. What has been happening in these current times? How has paternity testing advanced? And how has it eliminated, to a very high degree, paternity fraud? So before we head into that, I'd like to tell us about HLA, which is also known as the human leukocyte antigen. However, for the purposes of this conversation, I'll shorten it to HLA. What is HLA? What does it mean? And why are we talking about HLA? The human leukocyte antigen, also known as HLA, is a protein that is found on most of the organs on the body, or most of the organs in the body, and is also most numerous in the white blood cells. The human leukocyte antigen, the HLA, is not found on the red blood cells. What is the significance of all of this? It mostly comes into play with respect to when a patient needs an organ transplant. For example, a patient who needs a kidney transplant from a donor, usually the recommendation is that the patient gets a donor who has a HLA that is similar to that of the patient or the same as that of the patient. Else there will be what is called graft rejection, right? So that's basically the significance of the HLA, or the human leukocyte antigen. With respect to paternity testing, how does it apply? I just said that the HLA is found on most organs of the body, and so when you're looking for a donor, you need to find somebody who has a HLA that is similar or that is the same as your antigen, right? And so a particular child has his or her HLA type, and the HLA type will be similar to that of the father. The challenge with that is that the HLA might be close to or similar to that of the father and that of the father's brothers. Where it is really significant with respect to paternity testing is that if the father now has something very rare in his HLA, right, that could help in, identifying that or ruling in that he is the father. But the HLA does not help to determine who the father is, right? It helps to determine the chances of a child coming from a particular community or particular HLA group, etc. Something else comes to mind with respect to the HLA. If you watch a lot of crime series, movies, etc., when it comes to trailing a blood type, trailing specific unique or rare findings in a particular body organ that was detected at the crime scene, sometimes the HLA type will help them narrow it down, especially if the person has something very, very, very rare or some very rare disease. They'll be able to determine who the culprit is that carried out that probably homicide or whatever crime that the person carried out. And so that is how HLA applies. And so let's head down to today's times. DNA testing, paternity testing, was developed by a man, Professor Alec Jeffreys of the University of Leicester in 1984. He eventually became available for paternity testing in 1988. The DNA paternity testing is currently the most accurate and advanced technology for determining paternity as of today. And this is because even technology is advancing. All of this means that if the paternity of a child needs to be determined today, the DNA fingerprinting, the DNA paternity testing has a higher chance, in fact, a 99.9% chance of determining who the father of a child is. This means that in every 10,000 possibilities, there's a chance in 9,999% chance of that person being the father or not. So the accuracy is pretty high, the precision is pretty high. And all of this brings into consideration the fact that a child collects genetic material in roughly equal amounts from the parents. And so the material that could be used for DNA testing, DNA paternity testing, could include the blood, things like just, a swab from the inner cheek, the hair, the fingernail, different things that have the DNA. So the DNA testing has overtaken all other forms of paternity testing. The availability of DNA paternity testing services, is growing all over the world. And in Nigeria, there's growing demand for DNA paternity testing services. At the moment, there are labs in Lagos and Abuja of Nigeria that mostly serve as collection points for this. What this means is that some of the samples are taken from the patients and then they are shipped to major countries of the world, after which the test is carried out and the results sent back to Nigeria. There's only one center that I know of that at the moment has been able to start carrying out DNA paternity services in Nigeria, right? The samples are collected in Nigeria and the tests are run in Nigeria. So paternity, DNA paternity services, the demand is growing for that. But the important thing to take is that there are two types of paternity tests. We have the legal paternity test and we have the non-legal paternity test. With respect to the legal paternity test, apart from the courts requesting for that, with respect to the parents being those who request for the paternity test. The legal paternity test will need the consent of the father and the mother, right? Verbal consent and written consent. The major outcome of that legal paternity testing is that it is actually, the results are admissible in court. And then there's the non-legal paternity testing, where a parent can just decide to go and do the paternity test, go and carry out the paternity test on the child. It does not need the consent of either party, so one partner can do it. What's the other difference between the legal and non-legal paternity testing? The legal paternity testing is more expensive than the non-legal paternity testing. So for those, I just want to carry it out for the sake of knowing, but some folks might decide that they want to do the non-legal paternity testing, while the others who want to carry out legal paternity testing, they know, or they should know, that in that case it is admissible in court and for legal battles as it were. So if you want to carry out, if after all I've said you still want to figure out, you still want to know with a 99% chance or to a 99% degree that you are the father of your child, the recommendation is to go for a DNA paternity test, right? You could choose to go for the legal DNA paternity test, or you could choose to go for the non-legal paternity test. In some situations, paternity testing might not exactly be helpful or relevant. In cases where we have adoption, in cases where we have sperm donation, in cases where different reasons that lead to single motherhood, all of these are not exhaustive. However, like I said, there are some cases where paternity testing will not apply. If you have learned one thing or two things from this video, or if you enjoyed this video, I would like you to do me a favor. Kindly share with your friends, with your loved ones, and I'll see you in the next video. I am Dr. Delin, and bye for now.